I just took a full 17-minute podcast and turned it into perfectly shareable clips in less than 30 seconds, all without touching my timeline manually. Honestly, my hands barely even did any of the work because artificial intelligence handled the entire heavy lifting. The AI automatically recognized every speaker, switched the camera angles intelligently, and plucked out all the most interesting conversation highlights. These days, manually editing your own long-form conversations is frankly becoming pointless if you utilize the correct automation tools. Today, I will walk you through 3 distinct ways you can completely automate this intensive workflow, and I will definitely tell you which one I currently use at the very end. First, let's talk about the standard setup we use, which was a typical 2-person podcast with 2 cameras and 2 separate audio tracks. We had one main top clip for Paul with his audio beneath it, and a corresponding track for Omar's video, and audio underneath the other. While that configuration suits most shows perfectly, some advanced tools require you to map the cameras and speakers before they will do anything useful. The very first tool I tested in this comparison was AutoPod, and I have to say, this one is genuinely ridiculous in its speed. You simply pick your source clips, map out who is speaking on which track, set preferences like wide shot frequency, hit create, and then you just walk away from your desk. I left the wide shot frequency at a medium setting, even though this specific episode lacked a dedicated establishing wide shot, and confirmed the speaker count was set to 2. After that configuration, I clicked the multicam edit option, hit the start button, and then I simply started timing the total processing duration. AutoPod impressively finished chopping a 30-minute source file down in only 1 minute and 19 seconds of processing time. The resulting cuts were incredibly sensible. The mic levels were perfectly preserved across all tracks, and it immediately presented a sequence feeling professionally cut by a competent editor. There was no strange jittering, the speaker switching was genuinely smart, and it even seemed to grasp when to hold a specific shot for a reaction or a laugh. AutoPod's primary appeal is undeniably clear. It is exceptionally fast, wonderfully simple, and it completely handles the hard work so you don't have to overthink any technical rules. For creators who deeply value pure speed and the lowest possible friction in their production process, this specific tool is an absolute dream come true. The main downsides are that you lose some granular control over every tiny cut if you happen to be someone who obsesses over frame-perfect precision in your edits. Furthermore, depending on the subscription tier you choose, the pricing structure can begin to scale rapidly if you push massive volumes of hours through the system monthly. Next up in my experimentation, I wanted to try out the promising competitor known as AutoCut. This option immediately felt like it had serious potential. It requires the usual speaker mapping inputs, and you can actually set minimum and maximum camera display times, which is helpful for pacing. I specifically set the minimum camera time constraint to 3 seconds and the maximum to 20, then attempted to enable a backup processing feature and confidently pressed the execution button. And then I was unfortunately met with an error message twice in a row, which immediately halted my progress. When it did manage a partial rendering, it frustratingly would not accept the same type of presets that AutoPod allows you to configure so easily. During my several tests, the system just consistently kept throwing out a persistent error notification, making it unusable. Although the user interface itself looks very clean and it contains several smart underlying ideas, the tool ultimately felt significantly under active development and quite unreliable for my needs. If your mission-critical professional workflow absolutely requires rock-solid automation today, encountering these random errors becomes an immediate and total deal-breaker. Finally, I moved on to evaluate the third product in this lineup, which is called FireCut. FireCut took a noticeably different philosophical approach, providing you with much more direct and visible control over the final cut list before commitment. You gain the ability to select specific multi-track speaker modes, define the required switch frequency, set max shot durations, and even specify cutaway lengths. Most importantly, it actually lists every single cut the AI intends to make, which is fantastic if you prefer previewing the decisions before finally committing to an export. I simply set the analysis mode and then allowed the program to go to work on processing the entire source file. It took FireCut 5 minutes and 7 seconds to complete a job that AutoPod had managed to finish in just 1 minute and 19 seconds. However, that extra processing time was absolutely worth the trade-off because the resulting edit was incredibly clean and I could easily see the AI's planned jump points for reactions. For editors who genuinely need to tweak the underlying algorithmic logic or require specific, hard-coded durations for every shot, FireCut's transparency is a huge asset. So when we look at these 3 options in practice, how do they ultimately stack up against each other? AutoPod clearly wins the category for raw speed and absolute simplicity for fast turnaround needs. FireCut, conversely, earns the top spot for offering superior control and complete transparency throughout the entire editing logic. AutoCut remains a promising tool, but based on my testing, it simply needs much more polish before it becomes reliably viable. The crucial point, however, is that all 3 of these competitors are fighting in an incredibly crowded space right now, and none of them offer a perfect one-size-fits-all solution. AutoPod is lightning fast, yet it can sometimes feel like a complete black box because you don't see any of the internal logic at work. FireCut is incredibly thoughtful and offers great control, but it is definitely slower when rendering all those detailed decisions you make. AutoCut is still waiting for its major feature polish before it can be seriously considered for mission-critical projects. This entire realization is exactly why Vizard is a tool I consistently reach for when I want to transform hours of video into platform-ready short clips that require zero hands-on babysitting. Let me be absolutely clear about what my expectation is when I hand a 60-minute conversation file over to an AI editor for processing. I need it to find the moments likely to go viral, cut them into the correct aspect ratios for every platform, silence all awkward dead air, tune the audio perfectly, and then cue them for immediate publishing. Vizard successfully accomplishes all of that complex work, then wraps it with integrated scheduler and content calendar features, eliminating my role as the manual distribution engine. Here is exactly what happened when I ran the same exact podcast file through the Vizard processing pipeline. I uploaded the master file, mapped the 2 speakers we identified earlier, and instructed the AI to focus heavily on viral extraction and immediate platform sizing. Vizard's auto-editing immediately picked out punchy, engaging clips between 15 and 45 seconds, focusing on conversational highs rather than just loud noise. It also managed the multicam switching flawlessly. The AI recognized every speaker change. It kept all the relevant reaction shots, and crucially, it never cut mid-sentence. The entire extraction process took about the same super fast time as AutoPod, but Vizard then went a step further by generating multiple aspect ratios and suggesting platform-optimized captions. That automated scheduling feature, coupled with the visual content calendar, is the true game-changing differentiator that sets this platform apart. With Vizard, I can tell it to post twice a week to Instagram, once daily to TikTok, and even drip feed a top clip to LinkedIn on Monday morning automatically. The system schedules these perfectly according to my set frequencies, meaning I never have to manually upload a single clip ever again. If I ever need to adjust the future publishing schedule, the visual content calendar makes rearranging clips or modifying captions before they go live incredibly easy. This represents a massive step beyond just the initial cutting. It truly automates the entire end-to-end output pipeline for you. Bringing up a few more practical notes, Vizard's silence trimming feels much more context-aware than what I saw in the other tools. It intelligently avoids chopping a clip in the middle of a genuine laugh or removing intentional conversational pauses, targeting only true dead air. Where AutoCut failed entirely with errors or FireCut lagged extensively, rendering its logical decisions, Vizard simply finished the entire job and offered scheduling immediately. We need to be realistic though, because no single software tool is ever going to be 100% perfect in every scenario. Vizard is certainly not free, and depending on your output volume, you will need a plan that matches your necessary production throughput. It makes many complex editorial choices automatically, so if you are a micromanager who loves manual adjustments, you will still want to review the final timeline. However, compared to the alternatives I tested, Vizard provides the most pragmatic blend: super fast, smart editing plus an automated distribution layer on top. For most creators trying to scale content, that powerful combination of editing and automated publishing is far more valuable than having dozens of toggles you rarely ever touch. To summarize quickly, if you need something that just runs and gives you polished clips very fast, AutoPod is still a very solid choice for pure velocity. If seeing the underlying logic and tweaking the cut plan before you commit is essential for your peace of mind, FireCut is a genuinely compelling option, despite its slower speed. As for AutoCut, my advice is to simply hold off development on that one until it matures significantly and resolves those current operational bugs. But if you want the top tier editing plus the scheduling plus the integrated content calendar, Vizard is the one I recommend you give a serious look right now. It stands out as the easiest method to turn one long episode into a consistent, steady stream of optimized short clips that actually get published without fail. For those deeply curious, I conducted a direct side-by-side comparison focused solely on their silence removal features and how each handles awkward dead air. I will link that technical deep dive video right here in the corner for anyone who wants to examine those nitty-gritty details. For my personal use, the deciding factors boil down to reliability, overall speed, and crucially, what happens after the initial export is complete. Any tool that stops its job at the export stage just leaves you completely holding the bag for all the subsequent distribution work. Vizard automates the entire funnel, find the moments, edit the shareable pieces, and schedule everything so you are never required to babysit the posting times. So please, stop dedicating hours to manually swapping camera angles and constantly hunting for the best punchlines in your raw footage. Let the AI handle all that tedious grunt work, allowing you to focus your time on creating the next great ideas and interviews that truly matter. If you want a fast, absolutely no-fuss pipeline that just gets clips out the door, AutoPod remains a truly great selection. If your preference is to maintain granular control and review every cut plan before exporting, then FireCut is certainly worth a compelling look. But if you desire that powerful editing plus the integrated scheduling plus the content calendar management, please give Vizard a very serious look. That's the stack I rely on to scale my content consistently. Thank you so much for watching this comparison, and if you want more deep dive testing and reviews of these workflow tools, please hit subscribe right now. If you want to see that specific deep dive comparison on silence removal, check out the video that is appearing right here on the screen for you now. And finally, if you have a favorite workflow or a tool I completely missed in this roundup, please drop its name in the comments below so I can put it through these same rigorous tests next time. That covers everything for today. Have a great rest of your week and peace out.